who's going to talk about what is the cost of acquisition of a user. Inviting the moderator first, Aditya Vuchi from Zippr. Ladies and gentlemen, hands together. Next up, Tyrone from Mobobeat. Browser fame, UCWeb, Robert Boo. Abhinav Sarangi from All in a Day's Play. And last of the panel would be Rajagopal S from VClicks. Hello, sir.
Hello, guys. So our panel is going to be focused towards, there were quite a bit of show of hands in terms of people that either run or develop apps. And I think a big part of once you develop that ultimate product that you think needs to go on the Play Store is how do you get users onto your platform? And what does it really mean in terms of finances to get those people on board? So we have a great panel here. So what we're going to do is sort of quickly set the stage, have them do very quick introductions, and then cover a few topics that are specific towards user acquisition. So we were having a conversation right before this in terms of getting to know each other, and our sort of core focus is going to be to understand or walk through the journey. So as apps get developed and get into the Play Store or App Store and they mature over time, right? So your app / your business matures over time. So what does it do for your user acquisition? What are some of the channels that you should consider from a user acquisition standpoint? Where should you be spending more money or more time versus others? So that's going to be sort of the broad theme of today's conversation. So we have a couple of people that are on the ad network / monetization side. We have a couple of people on the app development side. So it's a nice mix that we have in the panel today. So just wanted to kick off with one broad question. So we'll go around the panel and then take more specific topics. So as we think about the life cycle of a mobile app, what are some of the considerations from a user acquisition standpoint, and then and how do you see that very quickly evolving? So we'll start with Raj on the right.
Okay, hi, I'm Raj from VClicks. We are a programmatic powered cross-channel advertising platform, and I head the business for that. So I think as the topic started, basically when we look at a user, I think we also understand that there's an acquisition cost to that, and there's a lot of emphasis on that at the early stage of any app developer, and it also depends on the maturity of the app. Basically, there are startups, and then there are matured apps which are large and huge user bases. So at each stage, there's a different acquisition objective or KPIs. So I think so that depending on the maturity and depending on the audience that you're catering to, the user acquisition goals always are different, and the ways to measure is also different. And that is what we also focus on, and that is where we cater to most of the clients, and we understand their TG, we understand what their KPIs or what the objectives are at that stage, and deliver campaigns on our network. So that's how we look at it.
So I'll quickly go across and talk to Abhinav. As an app developer, how do you sort of see this?
Good afternoon all. I'm Abhinav Sarangi, co-founder of All in a Day's Play, a gaming studio based out of Mumbai. We currently focused on trivia and arcade genres and have over 9 million downloads across our portfolio. So as an app developer or a game developer, user acquisition for us starts with the App Store page itself. So basic hygiene factors, the icon should be, it should be visually appealing, the description should be clear, ratings. That's the basic everyone has to take care of. After that, ASO becomes a very big part of user acquisition, where you have to optimize your keywords and description so that all the relevant keywords and people searching inside the store can find you. Now, till this, we are only doing free user acquisition because when you're starting up, you probably don't really have enough of revenues or enough of information about LTV to make paid user acquisition. So we start with free user acquisition, app store optimization, the store page views. Interesting thing which I like to kind of like bring out here is Apple recently introduced analytics feature. So inside your iTunes page, you can actually see how many people come to your store page and how many people actually download. So that conversion is very, I mean, for our apps, it's 60 to 80%, but I've seen numbers as low as 25 to 30%. So if you can just optimize that number, how many people are coming onto your page, how many people are converting by changing your app icons, that plays a big role. Apart from free user acquisitions, then we can go for paid user acquisition, which I'm sure other people will talk about. So that's briefly what, as an app developer, you start with.
Right. Tyrone?
Yeah, hi, I'm Tyrone D'Souza from Mobobeat. Mobobeat is a mobile CPI network. We work with app developers, helping them promote their apps. Our main focus is the India market, and we're slowly expanding into Southeast Asia as well. Well, on the topic of cost of user acquisition, it's a very interesting topic because I'm sure all you app developers out there want to promote your app, but you're not really sure how much should be the cost. I mean, these days another alarming trend, basically in the India market, is that the cost of user acquisition is actually on the decline. I mean, the app developers, on one side we see app developers who want post-engagement metrics like, I mean, user retention, LTV, that is lifetime value, and I mean, any post-install like purchases, etc. And on the other side, we see app developers who just want to promote their app for as low as, I mean, 6 to 8 rupees. So that's it. And I mean, it's a balance between both some app developers who really want quality, some people who just want installs.
Got it. Robert?
Hi, hello, I'm Robert from UCWeb, Alibaba Mobile Group. And UCWeb is a global leading provider for the mobile internet product and services. We have 3 core business. The first one is UC Browser. UC Browser is the most popular mobile browsers in the world, and we have #1 market share in China, India, and Indonesia. And in India, we already occupy more than 47% of the mobile web traffic. And the second product we have is the Game and App, which is the apps and game distribution platform. And the third is UC Union. UC Union is a mobile app network. So these 3 big core businesses form the UC Open platform to help our 5,000 partners to acquire billions of users. So about the cost of the user acquisition, we call it CAC, the customer acquisition cost. And first of all, let's see the market trend here. There's a phenomenon that thousands of developers are making millions of apps and try to reach billions of users. But unfortunately, it's the last most important step. The user acquisition is getting harder and harder because the cost is rising higher and higher. And actually, we can divide the user to 2 kinds of different users: the organic user and paid users. If you can increase the percentage of your organic user, then you can decrease the whole CAC, right? So here I can show what UCWeb do. What UCWeb did in India 3 years ago. We went to India and set up our office in Delhi, Gurgaon. At that time, we had nothing, but we have the product. So what we can do is just to focus on our product development. So we tried our best to use our cloud-based technology to improve the mobile web browsing speed, to improve the downloading experience, and to give the abundant local contents to Indian users. And even until now, we already have more than 3,000 employees. 80% are product R&D. So secondly, we try to broaden our partnership as wide as possible. And at that time, what we have is the mobile web traffic. So we exchange the traffic with all our partners for free. Then by this way, your traffic can be my traffic. And my users are your users too. So we acquire the users with our partners together and grow up with our partners. Yes, that's what we did and what we do and what we will do always to acquire user and to reduce the CAC. Yes, thank you.
Cool, thank you. So wanted to quickly talk about, and this is specifically to Abhinav as a core app developer. How do you assess, considering that you're in the gaming space, the lifetime value of a customer?
It's actually a tough one. LTV or lifetime value of an user, they're calculated in multiple ways. There are multiple ways in which people to take care of it. But essentially it's how much value is each user bringing. Now the very basic formula that you can use is ARPDAU into lifetime. So ARPDAU is average revenue per daily active user and the lifetime. How do you get lifetime? You get lifetime by retention, which is how long. So for example, if let's say you are retaining only 20% of your users over the lifetime, so if let's say your day 30 retention is 20%, that means the lifetime of a user would be a month and a little bit more. So that gives you how much money you're going to make multiplied by your ARPDAU. But more importantly, why do we think of LTV? It is because that determines the maximum amount you can spend to acquire a user. Let's say your LTV is $10 and you spend $15 to acquire a user, then it does not make business sense from a long-term perspective. A quick thing which Robert mentioned here I'd like to bring into is LTV is also a factor not only so it takes into account the user, the organic users you're getting. So if you're getting a lot of users from the platform itself through search engine optimization or app store optimization, then your total LTV increases and decreases because your total LTV increases because you're getting more users from free stores. So I think that's relevant because if you have a higher LTV, you can spend more amount of money, whether it be paid or free.
Right. So when you're doing a lot of this, digital marketing, cost per install campaigns, can you guys comment on what are some of the tools? How do you do attribution? We know it's a perennial challenge in digital advertising. Can you talk quickly about that?
Okay. See, basically, CPI is prevalent. I mean, that's like, I mean, wherever I went, I mean, I've been to Mobile World Congress, I went to various events. Wherever you see, it's all about CPIs, etc. But what we normally now are observing is that clients are moving beyond installs. That is very critical for any digital marketing team within the client, as well as players like us in the ecosystem who actually help the advertisers to leverage that the whole ecosystem. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that it has to move beyond installs. So now clients are increasingly started to focus on retention. So retention is one of the important. So the KPIs need to be defined. As an app owner or an app developer, the KPIs need to be defined, and there are, like I said, various stages of maturity. So you can define by retention, where you say that it is basically DAU or MAU, which is basically daily active users or monthly active users. If you look at monetization point of view, then you look at ARPU or lifetime value, or you can also look at ARPU and DAU together. So there are various metrics, and it also depends on what segment the app is from. For example, a travel app might look at rebookings. Okay, basically, I mean, different apps basically have to, and look at e-commerce, they look at the cart size. What is the cart size, or how much is the, the value of that. So it depends on which segment you are. So you need to really define it yourself. What exactly are you trying to achieve in the business? And that makes life easier for people like us who are helping. We would like to look ourselves as the programmatic partners rather than just an ad network or an ad agency. So that's important. So the definition of what you really want to achieve, that is going to drive the next level of growth. And it is not necessary that CPI has to be ignored. A lot of early stage apps actually really depend on CPIs because their app rankings increases, then their organic installs also increases because they are more visible. So at the initial stages, there are a lot of apps which really need to have a lot of CPIs and a lot of downloads. So that also really matters. So we recommend basis the maturity or the stage in which the app is in.
Got it. So maybe Tyrone, I think I want to take a slightly different angle to the question because he's spoken about attribution and some of the KPIs. Can you talk a little bit about some of the tools that are available to developers, or what should developers be measuring?
Sure. So I think before that, I would just like to share a very interesting statistic. It said that 5% of the users acquired in a channel contribute to 80% of the in-app purchases. So just imagine this 5% of the users that you acquired are driving a big chunk of the revenue. So if you app developers are able to identify, instead of say spending $1 to acquire a user in general, you could spend possibly $4 or $5 to acquire say all your users from that one channel. And how you do it is again using tools. You need to use tools to track retention. You need to have post-event metrics. Like in a game, you can set in-app purchases, completion of levels. If you're a music app, you need to track, how long a user is streaming a song or a movie or whatever. If you're a travel app, you need to see, what's your purchases. And again, coming back, if the app developers are able to identify which users are really working well and share this data with us ad networks, we can definitely help you, increase your revenue and grow as well. So I think this is a very important point that app developers need to focus on, and definitely we networks are here to help you to increase your revenues. Yeah.
Right. So I think one of the comments that that you guys were making early on was in terms of the kind of tools that app developers use for measurement. Right, in terms of activity within the app, what are some other sources that are driving? So you have a lot of tracking pixels. So wanted to quickly ask Robert a question on because every SDK that you put in for analytics or tracking increases the size of your app, right, the footprint of your app. So how do you sort of think about that? You want to have all the measurements, but you also want to make sure that your app is as light as possible.
Sure, I think every app should have their own measurement to how to measure their KPI, to measure the daily active user, the retention rate. For us, we have a very big data to analyze the user's characteristic, to measure how many people use our app and how many times we open and how many PVs they visit. We love to provide this statistics to our partners. But sometimes our partners want a third-party statistic to do the justice. So we love to recommend this kind of third-party statistic partner to our partners. So we work together to figure out all the data. Yes.
So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, talk about this recent phenomenon that we are seeing with all the taxi apps, all the e-commerce apps where they're giving hundreds of rupees of credit, right? So this is not specifically talking about your guys' business or the industry that you're in, but wanted to get comments as experts. People, Uber is talking about 300, 400 rupees in terms of referral credit. So are these referral programs here to stay? How are they, do they make sense? Quick word from each of you guys.
Okay, of course, this is a referral program is obviously one of the important things to spread the word of mouth and also to create, in this current scenario where social is playing such a huge role in your decision making. So basically the brands are not talking to the consumers, it's the consumers who are talking to the consumers. So it does make a big difference. Basically that a consumer experiences a good service and then he recommends to it, and then there is an incentivized way of doing it as well. But the idea is not just to incentivize for the sake of it or just to acquire a user, but also to make the consumer experience that first interaction with the brand. So for example, if Uber or any of those guys give a free ride to you, it is not just about to acquire a user or get a referral. It is basically also to make the consumer experience the brand as well. So it's a larger objective beyond those incentivizations. I don't think it is as myopic as just acquiring another user. And that's on the app owner side. And also there are, like I said, on the acquisition side where we work, there are publishers who do incentivized and non-incentivized installations. And those are specifically only to ensure that the app is installed. So there are two perspectives to that.
So wanted to quickly get your comments on, are these referral programs here to stay? Do they make business sense?
Well, according to me, I mean, Indians are very price conscious. So, I mean, if say today Uber is offering 300 rupees off, I would go and use that and might be tomorrow move to another provider who's giving me the next discount. I mean, we did see the same thing on e-commerce sites wherein, I mean, everyone was offering steep discounts, but how many of the users actually go back to a Flipkart or Myntra because of the brand? I mean, most of us only go back for the discount. So, I mean, the same thing would apply to apps. So, I don't really think.
So the jury is out. So we don't know whether these are going to sustain
yeah,
or not. So we are a little short on time, but so I'll ask you guys a different set of questions. So the other piece was how big of a role does PR play in either bringing down user acquisition cost or thinking about user acquisition in general?
PR is very important, no doubt, from two perspectives. One, as a developer, PR helps you get in front of the platform holders, Apple, Google, Amazons of the world. And as a lot of people know, a feature by any of these platform holders is a big boost to the number of downloads that you get. That's one thing. The other thing is, it also helps you drive, let's say you have a website or presence outside of the App Store itself. PR helps you drive people from outside the App Store into the App Store for downloads. That obviously helps in driving down your total user acquisition cost, the CAC number that we were talking about. Another small point on this, the more downloads you get, your rankings for keywords also increases in the different stores. Downloads in the last few days and downloads overall also play a role in Apple, Google and Amazon's algorithm. So any more download that you can drive from anywhere else plays a big role in increasing your downloads that you can drive from inside the store itself. So that's our view.
Yes, because there are a lot of channels and steps to acquire your users. For example, SEO, SEM, and buy from Google AdWords, Facebook, and buy directly traffic from the ad networks. From our experience, we need to try different channels to figure out what is the most effective channel for you, because different channels can bring the traffic with different qualities for different products. So I can tell you what is the best channels for you, what is the most effective for you. You need to try and to figure out. So, but when you figure out the results, you can put your majority of your budget on this kind of channels, but you must put part of your budget to some of the other channels to acquire some long-tail users, long-tail traffics. Yes, that's my point.
So one of the comments that I wanted to talk about here at Zippr, one of the things that we had seen is the loyalty of users that come through PR, read an article or whatever, where they've been exposed or educated about what your product or your service is, and then they come and download, they're more likely to stick around than if it was very transactional. So that's been our experience. And of course, there's no sort of silver bullet on how do you get great PR, but I think it's a very gradual thing. It doesn't happen overnight. If you get covered in a number of articles on one day, very dense, but doesn't happen over the next few months, the decay is very, very quick. So how do you ensure that you sort of continue to stay in the news from a PR standpoint? I think for us that's been a great channel. So we're almost out of time. So wanted to open it up for questions from the audience.
From a startup's perspective, I mean, how do we estimate the cost of acquisition of a user in the mobile world?
Quickly, if you just want to get ballpark figures, to acquire a user for iOS in US, it will probably be around $3 to $5 currently. Android would slightly be lesser, but still $2.5, $3. Those are the ballpark figures. How do you actually get to those figures? If you already have an app and you're advertising it, your ad network itself will tell you what that figure, which other advertisers are paying for you. So as publishers, I can go into my dashboard and I can download who all installed apps, which advertisers actually installed apps, which advertisers got downloads from my app. And I have their numbers. So I actually, apart from like industry standards, I also have numbers for my apps and how much how much people are paying for download inside my app. So those are ballpark figures. In India, I'm hearing the numbers are slightly lower, 0.5 cents around for a user on iOS and Google Play. So these are ballpark figures.
Any other questions?
Okay, one last question, yeah.
I know this is about customer acquisition, but I just wanted to, understand how much of your marketing budget goes towards customer acquisition and how much of it goes towards customer retention. Customer retention, does marketing, the driving traffic, does that play a major role, or the features inbuilt in the product, that plays a major role?
Actually, in terms of the cost, I can tell you the cost for the engaging an existing user is just cost 1/3 of acquiring a new users. So you don't need to put all of the budget to acquire new user. You must think about how to engage the existing users. So the way is keep communicating with your users. But I'm not talking about use the push notification. That's not a good way. But you must to keep communicating with your existing users. Yes.
I think a good. Go ahead.
Sorry, there are some stats which says that it is 95% lesser to retain a user than acquire a new user in an app. So it's as drastic as that. So obviously the budgets will be skewed towards acquisition of new users all the time. But it again depends on the maturity of the app, like I said. So it depends on which stage the app is in. So therefore the budgets will be allocated accordingly.
The other quick comment is, you also have, when you think about retention, who do you call an existing user, right? So today the concept of Ola or Uber, where they said that as soon as that credit, whatever, that referral program is done, that guy will download, he will use your service, and then he will move on to somebody else. So he's technically not your, is he your user or is he not? So there is a very gray line right now as to when you actually acquired a user. So I think that's very true for the Indian context because of the lack of brand loyalty.
I think the existing user is the person who's keeping the app in the phone. that's what the current challenge is, and then invoking them again to do rebookings, etc. is obviously the effort.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for your time.
Oh, that's a wrap. Please give it, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for taking us through the acquisition of the user on mobile. Can I call upon Atreya, co-founder of Brand Avatar, and the organizing committee, Suganya and Malini.